Master, may I please beg your indulgence for a few moments?
Go on then, what have you got? Hopefully it'll make up for your abject failure last time round and I won't have to blast you both again.
I've told you before, brown nosing gets you nowhere fast with him.
Shut the fuck up, you'll probably enjoy this as well. I found this for you, Master. It's an older one, but it appears to have gone under the radar for the most part, and it contains some of the best cringe and lol shit I've seen for a while.
Sounds promising. Let's give it a little look then. Oh yes.
Be honest. You hate black people, don't you?
Well, I hate you, and your skin colour's completely irrelevant to that fact.
Yeah, great way to start, by hurling a direct personal insult at your viewers. Also, what the fuck is that on her head? Is she trying to cosplay as Sideshow Bob?
White people, do you know what gentrification is doing to black neighborhoods? Do you have any idea?
Yes, it's redeveloping them from being shitholes into being places that provide employment and housing of a decent and livable quality. That is, for people who actually want to get off their asses and get a job that enables them to work their way out of poverty.
Why is being a former drug dealer a bad thing, but being a former slave owner totally okay in white America?
Well, considering that slave owners, or former slave owners, have all been dead for knocking on 200 years now, both the white and black slave owners, because there were just as many black slave owners as there were white, it's a question that you really need to be asking via a Ouija board to contact the great beyond, and not asking a general audience on YouTube. As for former drug dealers, if they have cleaned up their act and are actively helping people to keep off drugs and stuff like that, that's great. If not, they deserve to be in prison. But this is a bit of a really stupid question. But then again, this is some BuzzFeed crap.
Do you honestly think the structure of America is not based on racism?
Well, I don't know about all of the continent of America, but the United States was originally formed as an ersatz white supremacist state, but in modern times, it most definitely is not.
Well, yeah, considering the fact that people are allowed to vote, they're allowed to freely travel, they're allowed to freely express opinions, they're allowed to work, they're allowed to basically do whatever they want within the confines of the law, regardless of skin colour, race, ethnicity, religion, sex, sexual preferences, whatever. I can't see what the argument is for modern United States being based on racism, unless you're going to go down the fact that, like, oh, there's poor black people. Well, there are just as many poor white people, but nobody gives two fucks about them.
Do you really think you discovered America? Do you really think it's yours?
Well, the United States of America, as it stands today, was a state that was built up over the last few centuries by a predominantly white population who emigrated from Europe and settled colonies, made colonies. Those colonies grew larger, they developed the land, they developed the resources and everything like that. Yes, there were native peoples there already, and yes, white people did move in on their land without permission, but that's in the past. There's absolutely nothing to do to change that now. If you suddenly handed over the entire country to the Native Americans, they wouldn't be really in a position to be able to sort it out. And quite why a black person would bring up who owns the land when, black people, a lot of them were slaves and the people there are descendants of slaves, but just as many black people emigrated freely, like the white people did, to the United States. So whoever, who owns the United States is not really a relevant question. The state of the United States is owned by the people who live in it, via the government representatives. They could just as easily, get rid of the government in its entirety and revert back to an anarchic state, which what would happen then is you would see basically another kind of civil war type situation with groups or people who live in different states allying with each other and vying for power, and killing and maiming and looting and all shit like that happening. But When we're talking about who discovered America, it is known that America was first discovered by Vikings. And they set up a little colony there. It didn't work too well, and then nobody really visited there from the European nations until Christopher Columbus. But Christopher Columbus didn't really discover America. He discovered the Caribbean, specifically the area called the West Indies, because he was just basically looking for a passage to India by going in the opposite direction, and that's why it's called the West Indies, because he thought he'd found India in the west instead of the east. Nobody really, well, technically, if you want to go down that route, it's the country is owned by whoever first planted a flag and claimed it, which means that, in theory, America is actually owned by the Vikings, because they planted a flag there and claimed ownership of it. Yes, the native tribes who already lived there, lived there, but let's face it, there is plenty of evidence to state that the people who are classed as Native Americans are actually descendants of emigrants from the sort of Russian steppes and everything like that came across the land bridge during the last ice age. So, maybe before asking a question like that, you should do a little bit of historical research and, not try and just make it, oh, you is a white person, you is evil, you is bad, I tell you.
Damn, that was a long ramble.
Criticising the master will lead to immediate extermination.
What the fuck was that?
Looked like a giant homosexual pepper pot with an attitude problem.
When I'm upset, I'm an angry black man.
Or black woman.
But when you're upset, you're just upset. Aren't you an angry white man?
Obviously, you have never heard of the concept of the neck-bearded, angry white male who lives in his mother's basement. You dumb fuck.
Why isn't racism illegal?
It is, you dickhead. Try looking up the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the upcoming Equality Act of 2017. Anything else is covered by the First Amendment guarantee of free speech and people's own personal choices that lead them to believe in the same victimization narrative you're spinning right here, you disingenuous fucktard.
Why is gaining the black vote so important, but mass incarceration against black people isn't?
Because to politicians seeking power, the so-called black vote is simply a demographic that they have to persuade to vote for them. Same as the gray vote for the elderly, the youth vote for the young adults, and the fence-sitter vote for those who can't make their mind up. To them, you are all simply a statistic that they need to sway in their favor in their quest to be rich and powerful, and they will say anything to make you enable them to reach that goal.
As for people in prison, specifically the mass incarceration of black people, the question you should be asking is, why do a minority of the population end up being responsible for the vast majority of crime in the country? There is reasons behind that, poverty being one of them, which does need to be sorted out. But the problem is, when people have committed crimes and they are put on trial and convicted of those crimes, then yes, they go to prison. That happens to white people as well. When white people commit crimes and they're caught, they're convicted and go to prison. So asking for the black vote, during an election campaign is, like being said, just basically a way of securing their goal to power, to riches and power. People in prison deserve to be there, so this is really just another one of those non-questions to try and make out that black people are all oppressed and everything like that, when, truth said, they're not.
Why are all of y'all afraid of black people? I don't want your purse, I just want the same pay rate.
Some people are afraid of black people because they have a racial stereotype of being associated with gangs and therefore are seen as thieves and muggers. This is a problem which has been caused by the American black gang culture, and people do have the right to be afraid of being accosted and assaulted in the street in order to be robbed of their belongings and money, and possibly being murdered as well. This is something that is reflected in crime statistics, being as that black people have a tendency to commit more crimes than any other racial demographic in the United States. As for your pay rate, congratulations, you already have the same rate of pay as other white people you work with. However, if you are complaining that you do not think you are earning enough money, you should have maybe thought about getting a better education, which would have led to a better paid job, and therefore you would have been a lot richer than what you are now.
So, what would you do if someone tried to mug you?
I would exterminate them. Exterminate! 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 Exterminate!
What are you going to do about systematic racism? I mean, you.
Me? Well, I'm going to do absolutely nothing until sufficient evidence is brought forward of systemic racism, which unfortunately at the minute is not forthcoming, probably because the entire system isn't set up to be racist. It's set up for equality of opportunity and not the much sought after equality of outcome, which even if you had equality of outcome, it wouldn't be good enough for you anyway.
Why must you own all the media outlets? I mean, could we at least have BET back?
So, get off your fat ass, get some money together, find some investors, come up with a good idea for a media channel, and then see where it goes. Businesses sink or swim, based on their merit, and the people involved with its effort, to make it a success. You are just angling for something to be given to you, and not wanting to take personal responsibility for making something a success.
Why does every race qualify for reparations except black people?
Well, black people have been given the same chance as anyone else in modern America to make a success of their lives. Unfortunately, even with things such as affirmative action and black-only scholarships and job positions made available, some black people still aren't taking up the picking up the torch and running with it. I don't know why. I do know that black culture is to blame for quite a few of the problems that black people experience, but they will never admit that, because then that means taking personal responsibility for something, when it's much easier just to play the victim card all the time. Black people are not victimised. For example, reparations given to Japanese who were held prisoners during the beginning of the Second World War are deserved, because these people's constitutional rights were violated by basically being rounded up and put into prison camps. Reparations to Indian tribes are warranted, being as that land was stolen from them, people were killed in various horrible ways and stuff like that. So for black people today to ask for direct cash reparations is a little bit disingenuous, because obviously black people would have to prove that they are the descendants of slaves, and to prove that, this has had a detrimental, events of 200 years ago have had a detrimental effect on their life, a demonstrable detrimental effect on their life. Right, I'm going to leave it there with this video, because to be absolutely honest, this video is boring the shit out of me. It's just yet again a collection of the same old race-baiting tripe that fuckers pull out every time they want to have a go at Whitey. None of it makes any fucking sense whatsoever. None of it has any merit. And to be honest, when the video is called, 10 questions that BuzzFeed didn't ask, BuzzFeed probably didn't ask them because they knew that it was inane garbage, and they couldn't be bothered embarrassing themselves by putting this sort of shit out, which, kudos to BuzzFeed. I mean, the majority of their output is shite, but even they wouldn't lower themselves to ask shit like this. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. My social media and PayPal contact details are up on screen at the minute. If you wish to donate to me, please feel free to do so. Any amount, all donations are welcome and received with thanks. I have got a new microphone, so I've reached that goal. The next kind of goal I have is just basically money for personal living expenses, and hopefully possibly buying a new webcam and maybe a new PC, much better PC than what I've already got, because then I would be able to do better things on a more powerful PC, probably even do like game streaming, something like that. So thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a nice day, and see you next time.